Happy weekend, good peoples. I have a comparison of BTC income funds and I think some shocking data. It was shocking to me as I started to compare all the BTC income funds. Like I've been doing lately, I decided I'm going to compare them on exact apples to apples timeframes. And then when I started doing that, I said, all right, well, what are most of these funds using? Some are using futures, they use different strategies, some use swaps, some actually use IBIT, and there's one other big like IBIT, right, which in turn buys Bitcoin, uses futures. I forgot exactly what IBIT, how it concentrates. Um, but needless to say, it tracks BTC very closely. And that's what you look for. That's why a lot of these income funds. And then I pushed the step a little further and said, let's see how Misty's doing. Well, I got to tell you, it was shocking to say the least. All right, so I'm going to take you through. This is my first tab. So I'm trying to compare, not trying, I am comparing income funds. Notice the word income, not a 1x, a 2x, or something. It just pays once every 3 months or 6 months or something. So I do have a 2x in here. That's not fully the intent, but people pushed me on it, and it does pay an excellent distribution. So I thought, okay, fair enough. If you're really bullish and you want some income, and you want a better total return, then why not go out on volatility shares to their bid X? Okay. So it's in here for those purposes. The problem you get, I can go back and use, all the funds that go back a while. I picked 11.5 because that got the majority of them. And then that left four new funds. Okay. These funds are excellent, by the way, from Amplify. If you want to go out to their website and watch one of their portfolio managers talk about their strategies on writing covered calls on a weekly basis and yet trying to capture some upside, it's a good video. I'm not going to take the time in this video because I got a lot of detail to dive into, but it's an excellent video. And you learn more about what all they're doing. Well, they launched on 5/1, right? So it makes it hard. Then I have BCCC from Global X on 6/6, another great fund. And you guys have been telling me, and I interviewed Will Ryan last year of Granite on the rollout of Yield Boost. Well, they've had their Tesla fund for quite a while. Now they're starting to add. The word on the street now is that coin should appear very soon. So that's good news. So this XBitty, definitely a player, definitely here, and it's attempting to do something. These are your two index, right? I talked about IBIT from iShares. Fidelity has one called FBTC. And if you look at those guys, they pay no income. That's why I don't really promote them. But if you want to get the generally the best gains, but when somebody does better, I like to tell you about it. All right. And then there's a whole bunch of things here. So I got a 2x. Blue means underlying. White means they pay monthly, right? Which is a little bit less desirable than weekly. And then your browns are your weekly payers. Let me make sure I didn't miss anybody. I think BTCI is a weekly payer. No, they're not. Okay, so I think for the most part, I got it dialed in. And then, guys, like anything, when you do these deep dive and intimate comparisons and you want to get them just right, What happens when somebody's a monthly payer and they're 2 days away from their next monthly, and the weekly has got every one of their weeklies, right? They're 2 days away from their last weekly, and the monthly haven't. So, what I didn't do it here, but when I do my deep dive and I look at a basket of them, and the ones that just paid 2 days ago and one that's going to pay in 2 days, I go out and attempt to give it a number, and I'll tell you what I did on that so that we're really looking at the best situation. Because you can tank a fund that's about to pay $2, pays $2 every month, and it's 2 days away from paying, and you don't give it that credit. Sometimes it matters a little bit, and other times that payment will put it in first place or rank it much higher. So I try to take some of that into consideration. All right, so who's looking good here? Well, the 2x is, because if you look at its period of time, it's 11/5/24. Again, it's really hard to draw a conclusion. Oh, maybe they're just new and they caught the really up move. Well, on the next page, guys, the next tab, I'm going to take all the funds from 5/1. I'm also going to take the funds from 6. This is actually should be 6/4. I discovered that that is their date. And so I made a bunch of stuff on that. So one of the problems is I can't include XBITY when I do the 5/1. So I do a 5/13 batch, right? So I got it all covered for you. So let's not even worry too much about how it looks here. Okay, let's go over here and dive in. So I took this through, everybody being 5/13 and BCCC being 6/4. So and then even after that, I said, all right, I'm going to make everybody that scored well a 6/4. And then I said, all right, well, I'm going to go back to 5/1 and score everybody. And then that's when I decided to add msty and mstr, and frankly, it's shocking. Okay. So let's take a look at all this. So what's your 2xer doing in a current 5/13 environment? Well, it's still excellent, right? Only if you had a bear market would this not do really a down period. So where is it getting all of its, well, in the gain, 105% in the gain and only 12% on its distribution. And compare that to BCCC, which is our newest fund. And I make a note when they're due or not due. So BCC just had a little weekly distribution. So they're all caught up to speed. Who hasn't? These guys don't matter because they're indexes. IBIT just declared one, not IBIT, sorry. Granite just declared another weekly. So the two, Baggy and Biddy, the two amplifies that I'm really up on, they haven't declared, and they're only about 2 or 3 days away from declaring, probably Monday or Tuesday. So literally that soon. These guys have with Bitto. In this instance, I went out and said, okay, they're a day or two away also. So I'm going to give them $1. Okay. Maxi actually just declared, and that dollar is legit. So this one, in this scenario, I added it later. I changed my mind and said, okay, I'm going to only give them 80 cents. But up here, it's all right. Bitcoin has been doing well. They just paid 0.997. These are all their distributions, right? So I suspect this is going to be 80 cents to $1 easily for Bitto. So in here, I added it. Ybit, they're about halfway to their next monthly, so not a huge deal on that. But whenever I change dates and include players, you know what I'm doing? I'm prorating. Let's say that it's a 5/1 scenario. I'm making this up now. And then Ybit pays on 5/14. Well, I'll say, okay, that's 2 weeks in. I'm going to give them 48% of what the next distribution was. So if the date was May 1 and the next distribution was, May 15th, well, they didn't earn it all, but they were there for 2 weeks of it. So I'm going to give half, 48, 49. I do the days and the months and get the exact ratio. So I'm really trying to drive this down to be completely fair. Otherwise, you're not, just by default, if you just take the actual data. All right. So how does this look? This is really what you want to see. You want to look at total return, guys. So everybody here, except for one fund, is 513 to 64. Well, they stand out. Even the 64 fund, I actually I sorted this in order. I don't always, right? I started out doing that in the next column, and then I stopped, and then I added 3 or 4 more names, and they were bigger. I didn't bother to resort um, because I don't have headers on everything. But this was the largest because I tried to include everybody. So look at this, guys. What did I do a video on not long ago? That my title of the video was, if you own, this is the worst fund to own, just look at the competition. And the video was about Ybit, saying I wouldn't be in it, I would sell it. If you own it, there are much better funds. Well, duh. Look at this. They have a 10% total return. Okay. Now, Granite can get some, but look, Granite is paying 78.85 on its distribution. They're paying less than half that, 32. And their loss is greater. Otherwise, everybody is up from 6.4 and 513. So Granite stands out, right, with a 66%. BCC stands out with a 75. Both of those are paid and up to date. Okay. Round Hill is in here. Along with the two amplifies. Round Hill is the 59. But these guys get a lot better, okay, with more payments. So let's scroll down a little further. And let's take a look at everybody on 6.4. So I started this out to say, well, XBitty was doing good from Granite and BCC. How are they going to look when I compare them, both being 6.4 starts? Because that's what BCC is, right? It's the only one that couldn't go to 513. So I said, all right, I'm going to take everybody to 6.4. So I started these two and said, oh, okay, Granite wins. Even with a 14% NAV loss, look at that payout. They are paying hugely. The actual 52 days is 14.25%. Okay. Now they're weekly as of June 1st. Prior to that, they weren't. But this, so this is only going to show weekly. So then I said, well, I gotta look at the amplifies, right? I just better not leave anybody out because Amplify did well. So sure enough, they're even higher. Now, in fairness to Amplify on these, I did not add in a distribution that is just imminent. Like I said, it's 2 or 3 days away. And if I had BitO in here, I would do the same thing. So then I said, all right, I'm going back further and I'm going to 5.1. The only one that I can't really include is BCC, but they really didn't win the 6.4. There were better funds, but that's all right. They're a good fund. So if you own it, you can be proud of it, right? They're treating your money well. All right, let's step here. This is where I decided down here with Missy. We'll talk about that in a minute. I said, all right, let me clean this up here. Let's go to 5.1. That's when these two funds launched. Okay. And if you don't know, Baggy and Biddy they're writing weekly covered calls. They're playing off iBit, maybe another underlying. I'd have to, again, go listen to the portfolio manager describe it. I've been doing a lot of data gathering. I don't remember everything to the nth degree. But I decided to go through and look at their distributions and say, okay, well, they're up in this scenario where I have all the detail. And I said, they're 2 days away. So I'm going to give them like 90% of what, and the last two were very close. They had $1.46 and $1.41. So I gave them $1.40. I gave them 90 something percent, 95%, which is reasonable. They're imminent. I tried to see, did they literally, I think they declare on Monday, maybe, and everywhere I looked, I could not find anything on it. So it will be forthcoming. It's not going to be a big shocker lower. I'll come back and update. I always go back to the real data. So when I do that, these guys just stand out. So what are the difference? Why two funds? Okay. Here, this I remember. So Baggy is targeting a higher distribution percentage. They're saying between 30 and 60%, and they're leaving some upside. In Biddy, they're leaving more upside and they're targeting 2% a month. So annualized, that's 24%. So a lower payout, okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. What so far, where do they stack up? Well, I've given them the 95% of the next distribution. So in some fairness, that should have 89, 90 days. It's going to bring it down a percent or two. Nothing radical. Okay. So you're talking about their annual distribution is targeting around 28 and 35, right in what a little higher and a little higher than 30, but they're saying 30 to 60. And look at, they're not getting hurt at all on the NAV side of things. Look at the realized gains. 89 and 94. The only guy that's just killing everybody. And I said, well, I got to include almost everybody. I'm afraid somebody's an outlier. And sure enough, Maxi from Simplify. This is where they're winning. 25.27 just because it's 5-1. If you go back with Maxi here, they were getting a 3.66. So they flew up in that short period of time, in that 12 days. I double checked my data. Okay. So it's not a typo. They literally are 26.87 on their closing price and it's 33.66. Look up here on the 6. Same 33, but there are 32 going back to 513. All of a sudden, they're 26 here, almost 20. That's a big, significant advantage. Now, you have some other funds that are 17% here, but 25. So that gives them, over these 86 days, 160% annualized versus 94. So again, people said Simplify was like 4%. It's not, guys. That's false. If somebody wrote that in one of the comments that they heard from somebody else, they're like 1.2 or something. They're not cheap, okay, in their management fee, but they're not $4 or $5, $6. I mean, 4% or 5% or 6%, like the rumored. I think they said that would be a price they could go to, but for the next 3 years they weren't. Maybe they're going to pull everybody in and raise. But again, if you did this kind of performance and you said you were going to be 5%, I'll do that all the time. Now, can anybody sustain that? I don't know. You pay for performance. Okay. So a lot here. And then with Bitto, I told you about, I just used 80 cents here. I came in here and made a last distribution of 0.8 Because it's imminent. They always pay around the 30th or the 1st, right? And so by declaring on 28, they're going to have a payday. So I gave them 80 cents down here, whereas up in one of those. But they're competitive. I got Round Hill really. So I've got 192 here. I got these guys. Now, if somehow they pay lower, they're probably still, even if you take that away, these numbers are 113. If you take away the next distribution altogether, they're 113%. So they're clearly in second place. Round Hill's kicking booty. Okay. Nobody, even Neos, 90%. 103%, 192. Here's where it gets, look at poor, pathetic Ybit. Are you even in the game? No. I am so happy last year I sold that fund. Just so happy. So look at this. They're barely got everybody else from that same period of time, guys. They went from 1084 to 1086 on 5-1. What are they doing? It's not like they're paying. They paid $1.17, the worst. It's yield minimum, not yield max. It's yield min. Okay. Yeah, they got a decent percentage, okay, because they are cheap. Well, why are they cheap? Because they've had massive NAV erosion, right? So they're below BitO, but they're really like third place. Second place, because msty doesn't count in this. So again, they're yielding, so I take it back. Okay, your yield max, but your NAV? No way. Anybody knows that Bitcoin is moving up. All right. So then I said, I've been on this idea that I really need to understand what's going on with msty and mstr. So if I'm looking at all the BTC funds, hey, maybe I should just throw msty in this same 5-1 and see how they stack up. It's shocking. It is shocking. And I went and I gave them credit because Group D will declare next Wednesday. So 3 days out. So I gave them 90 cents saying, okay, a little bit away. Maybe they pay $1.10. It's not going to change anything, right? So I'm being fair to msty, giving them an advance payment, and they're still getting a 49, call it 50% NAV erosion, guys. They went from 24.49, okay, the launch is 5-1 to 2083. They ain't paying that much money. They're down. What's the actual change? Usually the change should be, oh, that's just a 1 week change. Yeah, that's $3.50, guys. They haven't even paid that out. They've only paid like 330 because I gave them 90 more cents for the next payment. So it isn't from that. So I said, okay, here's what I bit. So I said, I got to bring mstr into this. Well, they're capturing 23.14%. Now that's total. Well, here they were down 49% compared to all the others on the NAV. What is mstr? It doesn't pay anything. It's up 29.94. But that's kind of pathetic. Look at IBIT, which is riding on the back of BTC. Now, I know somebody's going to say, calm down, Bruce. Don't worry about it, right? It's just going through this period. Well, that's your money. I'm starting to think this is the norm and it's not going to be. I don't own that much msty. I do own some msty, okay? But I also bought some MSTW, so I'm going to immediately sell my MSTY come Monday, and then I won't even be buying MSTW. I'll be buying one of the funds. Right now, I own BitO, but more than likely, I'll buy YBTC or I will buy the Granite Shares Fund. who pays massively but has some NAV erosion, right? What do they call theirs? XBITY. So I'll buy XBITY or YBTC. Why wouldn't I want to get paid weekly? I mean, if Misty is the goat and a big payer, I'll take the month. I don't have to have weekly. I've said that since the beginning when weeklies appeared. But once they're the winners and I'm in those funds, I absolutely love it. So guys, that's what I got for you. I'm shocked. Okay. That is terrible. We're talking almost 3 months. We're talking May, June, and July. Yeah, 86 calendar days. That is shocking to say the least. You're in Misty, you are not, your money is not being treated the best that it can be treated. It may perform within the MSTs, right? Those types of funds. I'll do something on that. It's not the winner of those fund types, but it's competitive. But I think it's a wrong place right now. I think it's more about BTC than it is MSTR. Let's see. All right, guys, that's what I got for you. Oh, let me fix this. When I started the program, it took away what I had done. Always does that. Okay, so I hope this helped. I hope it opened your eyes to a few things. This is the only way, in my opinion, to compare funds and make decisions is have all of the data and be as fair as you can be about accounting and where they are to dates and new distributions and all that, then you truly can do it. I wasn't even doing it to the right depth because I didn't want to do the extra work. But now that I've done the extra work, and why did I want to do that? Because I wanted to make a decision on what I was going to do with my Coney money and what was I going to do with my Pulte money because it ain't yield max anymore, peoples. All right, guys, that's what I got for you. Again, this is Bruce with Targeted Wealth Creation. I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. I will be back on Sunday for the group D, including Misty and the cohorts there for an estimates video. All right, guys, bye for now.